Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfoud, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Chapter 8. Can Money Buy Happiness? Ethics, Part 1. Happiness. You only live once, YOLO. So, why do you go to school? After turning 16, you don't need to go anymore. Most students tell me they go to school so that they can get into a good college. I ask them why they want to get into a good college, and they tell me that they want to get a good job. I ask them why they want to get a good job, and they tell me so they can have money. I ask them why they want to have money. They start questioning my sanity at this point, and they begin to falter. They realize that they want money to buy things, to provide for a family, to be able to live comfortably. Then I ask them why they want all those things, and they really don't quite know what to say. Eventually, with some prompting, they realize that they want all of those things because they think they will make them happy. If I ask them why they want to be happy, they have nothing more to say. Happiness is its own reason. All of those other things are means, and happiness is the end. I then tell them that those are okay reasons to go to school, but not good reasons to go to school. I will come back to this later. Let's focus on this idea of happiness. Is happiness something that money can buy? Money can buy candy, and I really enjoy candy. Candy brings me the happiness of enjoyment. Money can buy me a comfortable house and furniture. So, money can buy me the happiness of comfort. Money can buy me entertainment. Aren't those the things everyone seems to be after? Enjoyment, comfort, and entertainment? I hear my students say that they look forward to the weekends and vacations for those very reasons. But do those things bring us real happiness? How do you feel after a day of binging on candy and TV shows or movies? Do you feel really alive, or do you feel sluggish and mopey, like a tiger or a snail? What if there was something more? What if there was a better kind of happiness? You see, happiness is one of the words that we use without giving a clear definition. So it is really easy to equivocate with that word. Use the word in more than one sense. The types of happiness discussed in the first paragraph are types of happiness, but Plato, Aristotle, St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, and many other wise people discuss a different type of happiness. You might be wondering why we are discussing happiness in a chapter about ethics, but the ancients, the medievals, and the church all say that happiness is the main point in ethics. Only since the enlightenment, when everyone went on a diet, has ethics become about anything else. The classical idea of happiness was when a man reached his fullest potential and is thriving. We have already discussed how humans have a particular nature or essence, and a man is most truly happy when he is fulfilling that essence. Think of it this way. Imagine that I take a guitar and start using it for construction. What will happen to that guitar? It will break or at least be badly damaged. It is bad for the guitar to be treated that way. But when the guitar is placed in the hands of a virtuoso, it produces beautiful music. It is good for the guitar to be treated that way. So it is with the human. When we use ourselves in ways contrary to our essence, we cannot reach our full potential, and we do not thrive. Instead, we do damage to ourselves. The worst part is that we also damage our ability to recognize the damage. We become unhappy, and we become less able to recognize our own unhappiness. But when we live according to our essence, we can reach our fullest potential. 2 attempts at happiness. There are 2 ways of pursuing happiness. The modern way is to change reality to conform with my desires. The classical way is to change my desires to conform with reality. I can fight against my own nature and the rest of the world and try to bend it to my will and my emotions and my ever-changing wants, or I can learn to live in harmony with my nature as a human being and the rest of the world. The first way of pursuing happiness is based on the modern idea that happiness is comfort, enjoyment, and entertainment. The second way of pursuing happiness is based on the classical idea that happiness has more to do with my character, my state of being, and being a certain type of person. Let me be clear here that when I talk about living according to our nature, I am not talking about the individual preferences that people have. Definitions are important, right? I am not talking about the way that I want to live my life, or what my emotions tell me on a day-to-day basis, or what my personality is. I am talking about our common essence as human beings. In the way I am using the word here, my nature is not introverted, likes to read, enjoys exercise, or anything else about my personality. My nature is a body-soul unity with intellectual capacity and a social nature. I have a mind, will, and emotions. And true happiness comes from developing each of those capacities to its greatest potential and making sure they all get along. In other words, though my mind might be as developed as possible, and it is not, I'm just saying hypothetically, I am not reaching my fullest potential if my mind and emotions are constantly at war. This is the basis of ethics because it directs all of our actions. Since I am social and need a community to live in, I undermine myself if I deceive others, murder, or steal. Since I am rational by nature, I have a moral obligation to develop my mind to be the best that it can be. Since the purpose of the mind is truth, I have an ethical duty to philosophize. Since I have a body, I ought to provide for my physical needs like food, shelter, and rest. The good. Consider this question. What makes the bad guys and the good guys the good guys? The words bad and good are often a part of ethics, and it is important to know where they come from and what they really mean. When I ask this question to my students, I hear them say things like, bad guys hurt people and good guys help people. But the bad guys sometimes have some noble goal in mind, at least noble in their own mind. Hitler, after all, was just trying to move humanity along to its next stage and better stage in evolution. He did what he did in the name of progress. Well, what makes something good? If I say that a dog is a good dog, that ice cream is good ice cream, or that a guitar is a good guitar, what do I mean? I can either mean that the dog, the ice cream, or the guitar is somehow good for me. In that case, I mean that they help me to fulfill my nature as a human being and reach my fullest potential. Or I can say that the dog fulfills the essence of being a dog, the ice cream fulfills the essence of being ice cream, or the guitar fulfills the essence of being a guitar. Good is always tied to potential and essence. Of course, the first and fundamental good is existence. An object cannot have any other good or even come close to fulfilling its potential if it does not exist. Everything comes back to being. And since God himself is the very act of existing itself, then he himself is the highest good. Nothing can have more actuality or a higher fulfillment than God. So what makes a bad guy a bad guy? He is not fulfilling his potential as a human being. He is somehow contradicting the very essence of what it means to be a human. As social animals, we ought to help one another reach our fullest potential. But when a bad guy intentionally harms others, he does not help them reach their fullest potential. And since he is not living according to his nature, he is harming himself. In fact, the greatest damage he does is to himself, because his own actions determine who and what he is. His actions cannot determine the state of being or character of the people he harms. The real reason you should go to school is that it is good for you. It is good for your mind. School will not necessarily make you wise. It depends on what you do in school. But school is an opportunity for you to develop that part of you which is truly unique, your reason. Man is by nature a rational animal. Man is by nature an animal that ought to go to school. Love. When we understand what is good, we can analyze the various meanings of the word love. We use this word in so many different ways. I love my mom, I love my wife, I love my kids, I love candy, I love Philosophy Fridays, Jesus tells me to love my neighbors. How can we use this same word in so many different ways? I love my mom and my kids in the way that is natural for family members to love each other. I love candy and Philosophy Fridays because I enjoy them and I desire them. I love my wife in a way that is proper to the relationship between a husband and wife. While we only have one word for love, the ancient Greeks had four. Storge was the word that referred to the natural family bond between family members. Phileo was the word for love between friends. Remember from philosophy. Eros was the word for romantic love. Agape was the word for self-sacrificing love. and willing the good of the other. None of these would be appropriate for Candy or Philosophy Friday. The first three of these types of love indicate a desire for some good. Family, friends, and romantic relationships are all good. They can certainly be distorted, but they are good in themselves. Agape love, on the other hand, does not desire anything for the self. Instead, agape works only for the good of someone else, regardless of how we may feel about that person or the feelings we get afterwards. This kind of love is very difficult, and it takes a person of true character to love perfectly. First of all, in order to love well, we need to know what is the good of the other person. Our study of happiness has shown us that the good of the other is not just whatever he wants. The good of the other is that he live according to his nature as a human. This is far from our modern, mushy sense of love, L-U-V. With all these different forms of love, it is all too easy to speak equivocally, that is, to use this same word in different ways. The slogan, "Love is love," may, in fact, be an example of a logical fallacy. Application: food and sex. Let's try out the standard of the nature of things with respect to a common everyday activity: eating. What is the nature of eating? If you were an alien race who came down to Earth and studied humans and observed eating, what are its essential aspects? First of all, you would notice that food is essential for maintaining the health of the body. Second, you would notice that eating is enjoyable. Those are the two essential aspects to eating: enjoyment and health. Therefore, when one aspect is completely ignored, eating becomes distorted. When people eat for enjoyment alone, and they ignore the healthful aspect of eating, they do damage to themselves. When people eat for health alone, and endure horrible tastes only for the sake of eating certain foods, then they have distorted the true purpose of eating. We ought to enjoy food and eat according to health. Recognizing the nature of eating is important for maintaining the right perspective on eating. Removing or overemphasizing one or the other is a perversion of eating, and eating will not be fulfilling its true nature. Eating is best when those two aspects are given their due. Here is another riskier topic to examine: sex. I realize this is a tricky topic, but it is necessary. What is the nature of sex? The science and physiology of our bodies tell us that the male body parts were made for the female parts. Their primary function is to conceive and give birth to children. The nature of the female body is to nurture and care for the unborn child inside and feed the newborn. So the first essential aspect of sex is to have children. Secondly, there is an emotional bond that takes place when a man and a woman have sex. Intercourse is more than a full contact sport. The two lovers are sharing their full selves with each other in a way no other activity allows. A secure relationship is necessary for this type of intimacy to be safe. So the second essential aspect of sex is a permanent, stable relationship and emotional bond, which we find in marriage. The third aspect of sex is the most obvious: enjoyment. It feels good. So in order for sex to be the very best that it can be, all three aspects are necessary: openness to children, marriage, and enjoyment. Not that you have to conceive a child every time you have sex, but that you are not intentionally impeding that piece of the puzzle. As the intimate bond between a couple and the means of procreation, sex is one of the most good and beautiful things on this earth, and it is therefore very powerful and easily misused. It is hard to distort something that is not really that good to begin with, but something really powerful can be distorted very easily. The best sex is not necessarily the sex that feels best. To focus on this one aspect of sex and ignore or intentionally remove the others is a serious distortion of this beautiful act. So you see, philosophy is very useful in helping us understand even things like how to get the most out of eating and sex. The idea that things and activities having a certain nature allows us to be intentional about making those things and activities the best that they can be and reach their true potential.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.